All right, so in this lesson, we're going to explore more ways to get out of the open position chords that you usually play down here. There's nothing wrong with those chords, especially if you're a beginner or an intermediate guitarist. But as you go through practicing songs, writing songs, if you're a worship leader, you're crafting sets, you're putting songs together for Sunday morning, you might want to consider a different option for some of your arrangements and how you place chords on your instrument that then dictate how the rest of the band is going to play those same chords. So, hey y'all, it's Derek from Worship Strategies. Thanks so much for clicking on this video, and we hope it helps you out. If you want to help us out to reach more churches and to reach more people with the content that we provide, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and click the notification bell to stay updated on the content that we give to you. Thanks. Let's get back to the video. So, right now, we're going to explore what we call planing. So, planing just means that you're taking one chord and you're going to move it down or up to another chord within the key. And oftentimes, you plane those chords over a pedal note. So a pedal note is a note that stays constant. It stays constant all the way through a progression. And then you have other chords that move up and down on top of it. So the progression we're going to take today is A, going to G, to D, back to A. So if we're using Roman numerals or if we're using the National Number System, that looks like 1, flat 7, 4, back to 1. Now, we oftentimes just play those chords just like that, and we rely on a bass player or we rely on a keys player to play in the lower register to cover that low end if we want that pedal note to be sounded. So we end up playing just these chords. But what if we wanted to do something different? So this is where we're going to use triads, just using these three fingers, your pointer finger, your middle finger, and your ring finger, to grab the same notes of the chord, but rearrange them in different areas on the neck. And it's actually a simpler way of what we call voicing the chord. So let's take the A chord that you know. We have E, A, and C sharp, along with A as an open string and E as an open string. So let's just focus on the fretted notes for right now, and we're going to rearrange these notes up the neck. So let's take the E up to the next note that would be in the chord. And so if we're going from E up, we'll find ourselves at A. And at this point, we have to find where C sharp and E are. Well, it's pretty easy. You're just going to stair step it. And that is at the 7th fret, the 6th fret, and the 5th fret. And you can play the open A and the open E against that, just like you would down here. Okay? So, let's go back to our chord progression. We have A to G to D, back to A. So let's start off with our new A chord. Well, the nearest G chord would actually be 2 frets down, right here, at 5th fret, 4th fret, and 3rd fret. All you're doing is you're moving this A shape that we just learned down 2 frets. Super easy. So, here's that motion. And then, when we put the other notes around it, the open A and the open E, we get a pedal tone and we get some really cool dissonance up above. So here's the A, and then here is the G played over the A. It's a pretty cool sound. So let's play that again. we covered the first two chords in that progression in this new position. So let's play those again, just long tones, A, down to G, and now we're going to play our D chord. Now you might gravitate towards this shape that you know. And that would be technically okay, but we want to lead the voices of the chord or the chords into each other that makes sense. So instead of going back to the familiar shape, we need to find a fingering combination on this inner string group, on the fourth string, the third string, and the second string, that outlines that D chord while playing our pedal A below and having the E up top. So all we're going to do is we've ended up here at G over A. Well, the notes in a D chord are D, F sharp, A, and right now I'm sitting at G, B, D. So all I need to do is take those notes down to the next note that would make a D chord. So in this case, I'll have F sharp at the 4th fret, A at the 2nd fret, and D at the 3rd fret. So then when I ring that together with the A below and the E above, it sounds like this. Very cool suspended sound that also has a color tone put into it. So if I play those chords one after the other, going from A to G to D, all over in A, it sounds like this. Now, the final chord in the progression is going back to A, but we don't want to necessarily go back to the A we played before, because if you remember what I said about leading the voices, we want it to make logical sense. So if we're continuing this descent going from A down to G down to D, we need to keep going lower to the next notes that make up the A chord, going from D to A. So we just ended up here at this D. The next logical choice would be to go back to our familiar fingering for A, where all of your fingers are at the 2nd fret on that string group. Pretty cool. So let's put that all together, just one chord, one strum at a time. We'll do A. Now we'll move to G over the A. It's the same fingering, move down 2 frets. Then we get to a new fingering for D over A. So that's 4, 2, 3. And then we're back to our familiar shape for A. So let's do that all again, putting a little bit of a strumming pattern into that. Okay, so practice that for a little bit, and then we'll move on to further shapes of the neck. Okay, so we took this A shape and we moved it up the neck to the 5th fret and kind of stair-stepped our notes from there. What happens if we take those notes up another sequence up the neck? So I go from A at the 7th fret, and now I climb up to C sharp, which is at the 11th fret. Now I need to find where my A and where my E are in this new chord shape. So the easiest way to do this is to go from C sharp to E. That's at the 9th fret of the 3rd string. And then we play an A at the 10th fret of the 2nd string. And it sounds like this. So we've actually expanded the voicing of the chord to encompass a larger register. So when we play our chord down here, we're covering, we'll say, this amount of notes in a register. When we come up here, we're not actually really moving registers all that much. It's basically a respelling of this, plus some double notes. But when we get up here, we've taken this amount of notes and we've added another octave to it. So, that's the shape that we'll start with. If you notice, it is the same general shape as our D that we learned before. Pretty cool. So, in the same way that we played A to G using the same fingering, we can do that here. Move down 2 frets. And then we move to the next logical set of notes to go from G to D. So right now I'm playing a B, I'm playing a D, I'm playing a G. So what I'm going to do right now is play A. I'll use this fingering just for familiarity. A at the 7th fret, D at the 7th fret, F sharp at the 7th fret, which is also just like our familiar A shape. Okay, so let's start all that again, going from the 11th fret. So we'll have 11, 9, and 10. Keep those outside strings ringing. That's our A. And we're going to move down to G over A using the same fingering but 2 frets down. And then we're going to play a D over A using our familiar A shape, but it's all at the 7th fret. And then, as we keep moving down, we'll arrive back to the 7th, 6th, and 5th fret shape for A. So here's what that sounds like in sequence using long strums. A, G over A, D over A, and then A. Let's hear that with a strumming pattern. Okay, so you learned a couple of different ways to plane familiar shapes or similar shapes across the neck, covering a wider range than what you would normally get with just these chords in open position. Now, in the voicing of those chords and how we lead those voices, they all started from a top note and they descended down, and then they went higher and then they descended down. You don't have to do that. There's no hard and fast rule that says you have to do that. So what we can do is kind of mix and match where we lead the voices. So let's start off with our stair-step voice for A. So at the 7th, the 6th, and the 5th fret. And we can lead it down to G, just like we did before. But what if we want to make a skip up to hearing the F sharp as the highest note in the chord for our D? Well, we just go up here. 7th fret D, and we go back to A. So you're hearing this melody note following that contour instead of. So I'll play those two examples where I play the melody descending all the way down, and then where I play the melody going down, shooting up, and then coming back down with the chords underneath. Let's hear that with a strumming pattern. So that's just one example of how you can add a variation to the contour of your voicings and just play around with that. You can do it up here. So in that case, the D over A was stair-stepped from the 12th fret, same shape that we did from the 7th fret for A. I just resolved down into this shape for the A. Okay? So, take that, play with it, run with it, do whatever you want. Just make sure that you're playing the right notes in the chord and that it follows a logical progression and that it makes sense melodically. So as rhythm players, we don't often think melodically, but we should. So it's easy to just gravitate back to these shapes because they have voice leading sort of built into them, but using this method makes you play a little bit more intentionally on how you are outlining a melody with your voicings. Usually a melodic contour that makes sense moves in steps, so one note to the next in the key, or you'll do what's called a skip. So you'll go every other note. You don't want to have really big leaps that kind of go all over the place. You want smooth contours that can have some variation, but generally it sounds singable. So take this, run with it, play with it, do what you want, see what you come up with.